there are many of our people who are thinking more deeply and more broadly, looking at it as it actually is, and are beginning to see it more in the international context and the relation that it has with the African struggle, a human rights struggle, or the struggle for human rights. And as such, we can then take it into the United Nations.
And bring about the freedom of these people by any means necessary.
Peace, everyone. This is African Esquire TV, and also We Charge Colonialism. We have a very special edition today. We're going to be interviewing some of our brothers who are fighting the decolonization fight over in the country of Nigeria. So this is an organization that I became aware of from social media, and they're going to tell us really what's going on the ground, because social media is not going to tell you everything you need to know. So I'd like to introduce the organization Movement for African Emancipation. If you could please introduce each of yourselves and tell us also about what your organization is and what you stand for.
Okay, my name is Comrade Shongo Omojola from the Movement for African Emancipation. And just very briefly, Movement for African Emancipation is an organization recently formed with a background in which people are struggling for a better country and a better Africa because of the extreme conditions under which they live. But there's definitely a need for conscious leaders who direct that struggle in a way that will actually bear fruit, because what we see is that a lot of people have misconceptions and are likely to continue to fall into the trap of colonialism. And the real problem affecting Africa and Nigeria is simply a question of the continuation of colonialism by other means. And so we find a situation that many people are not conscious of that and blame the wrong things. And like we saw recently during the NSAS crisis, some of the so-called leaders, in a movement that they tried to pretend had no leaders, were actually pro-imperialist, pro-colonialist, and pro the ruling elite. If they had taken power, you can imagine that things will really not have changed. So we are here to essentially push a change for consciousness and of Pan-Africanist, and by Pan-Africanism we mean socialist Pan-Africanism. Yeah, so that briefly is about us, though we might speak more on that. So next with me here, Adebayo, he can introduce himself.
My name is Comrade Adebayo Adidiji.
And also OAG, brother.
Yeah, Comrade OAG. Yeah, and also with the Movement for African Emancipation, like Comrade Shango has said, we're working, to ensure that we push revolutionary consciousness, because that's sorely lacking in our environment that we find ourselves. So that's a crucial task that we are engaging in now, and looking for very creative means to push this awareness and consciousness. So it's a task that we're committed to, looking for ways to expand and broaden our outreach while doing this. So thank you for having us.
Thank you for coming. So one question I always wonder, whenever we have organizations that are revolutionary, Pan-African organizations, how did you come to being? Especially, I'll say, for us Africans in the United States, like you don't hear a lot of issue about the issues of the African people globally. And so a lot of us will focus more domestically on our issues and think that we're finding a solution alone. But in my opinion, we have to work collectively with our brothers and sisters. So what made you arrive at that Pan-Africanism, socialist Pan-Africanism is the method that you want to go, and also what made you decide to start the Movement for African Emancipation?
Yeah, because I think any proper study of Africa and Nigeria in particular you can only come to the conclusion that Pan-Africanism and very clearly defined, as socialism is the solution, because imperialism got us to where we are today. Um, Colonialism got us to, if you read some books like How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, or Franz Fanon, Wretched of the Earth, or so many, you can get that understanding. And then, but when you live the reality in Nigeria, you find that the consciousness has become, certainly what we can call cultural imperialism has penetrated quite deeply. And the television people watch it, the education system doesn't teach much history, so you have that situation where people are not really conscious about this. They think it's unimportant. But the reality is, first of all, there's a lack of pride, full stop. And when we say, pride, a belief in yourself and belief that you can achieve something. So it's like people might even say, well, it's better if we were recolonized. But it's okay if we are still colonized. We just have bad leaders, So there's a if you were to be fully independent, or you don't have a belief that, for example, we have a lot of technology that, we Africans survived with technological advances, and there's a lot of ability to, we have to do things to our own context in Africa. If we had new leaders who were going about copying everything they saw everywhere rather than uh, making it fit into the context of Africa. For example, the kind of buildings you live in, cement buildings, there's a lot of heat. Traditional African technologies understood about cooling a building. That's just a simple example about what kind of leaders do you think you will get if they did not have this mindset. So it's for us very important, and what you know that's why Movement for African Emancipation, MEE, we are Pan-Africanists, but we are very strongly socialists because we have an issue within Pan-Africanism. There's some aspects that focus on cultural areas and so on, but we find it is much more than that. And culture is not the issue, because culture actually gets appropriated, by the actually the puppets of imperialists here do know very much how to appropriate culture. So, and there's a class issue. It's not just about all of us are now Africans and therefore we are all. No, we yes, we came out of no class society in many respects. We came out of a communalist society before the capitalists, before the imperialists came in. But now, and the imperialists succeeded because they were able to find some of us who were ready to exploit others, and that is the situation today. So it's not about we all Africans, but it's about fighting for the majority, the 99% of us who are oppressed. So, in terms of, just briefly, in terms of the work we do, it comes in two stages, because we are very keen that there's an issue about having leaders who are of good quality. It's not just everybody just, I'm a leader. It's about leaders who are ready to study and understand the environment and understand the solutions that are necessary, are ready to read, and practice it. So we are clear. For example, we are not a big organization and we have no issues with that. We want to grow. Like Amir Cabral says, you plant a seed and it takes stage by stage. It's not about, oh, there must be a big mass all of a sudden. No, there are stages to things, and we're very key on that things have to develop in the stages that they have to. But on the other hand, we are very much engaged in mass work, in any mass agitations. We're engaged in struggles for revolution in Nigeria and engage with the masses, because you certainly have to meet the masses at where their consciousness is at, and you certainly engage with them, you learn from them. But at the end of the day, there's no other. No, struggle is the best teacher. We believe we read books, but you cannot learn without actually diving into the water. So that's about us. But if others want to come in.
Okay, if not, you said something that was very interesting, about trying to reach the masses. I'm just wondering, like, how is your message received by the everyday person who's we consider the masses, so the people who are really struggling? Because something I've heard, is that whenever you hear people talking about revolution and things like that, that it's kind of perceived as privilege, because there's people who are living hand to mouth and don't necessarily get the time. They're trying to work, and feed their family. They don't necessarily have the time to connect the dots about their exploitation or even explore that. So I'm just wondering, like, how that message is received, and how exactly do you go about spreading that message?
Yes, I think we have no illusions that it's it's easy, or that the masses imbibe the message, but we think, yes, that's why we say there are two things. You can appeal to a leadership, and there's a way what you demand from them versus what you do with the masses. The same things, for example, for our members, in our organization, we're very critical of religion. We just use that as an example, because we feel it especially the foreign religions, and particularly the foreign religions, it brings back consciousness. It's not History has shown that it pushes back development in many respects, in terms of, like, even scientific development. But yes, when you go to mass work, the masses are religious. You have to meet them where they are. You can't go and tell them no, religion is bad. No, you really have to understand where they are, and you don't have to actually go with the belief that you are right. You have your own point of view, fits what you need to do. You learn from them, but the thing is that um, you have to still challenge them. And for example, we believe in methods like Fanon has discussed, Paulo Freire, who a lot of people um, normally quote about having a kind of mass engagement or mass education, who talks about having a dialogue with masses. Actually learned from Fanon, and is this thing is it's about, yes, and you put it this way, it's like when you have spontaneous action versus organized action. uh Spontaneous action has its strengths, and that's how we see with masses. The masses might get angry about something, and they are the force that will make it so, but only up to a point. That there must be a program and things, a direction, and that's where leaders have to come in. You meet the masses, you have a dialogue with them, you learn from them. They are where they are, and but that is your duty, or that is what your responsibility, to get them guided towards where they will go. And we have seen it. The majority of people cannot reject socialism. Like, the majority of poor people, even talking about Pan-Africanism in Nigeria, it can be very funny. It's like people believe that Pan-Africanism is like the devil. Like, if you talk about, yeah, maybe say you even try and talk about your own indigenous religions, for example, as opposed to the foreign. There's the whole belief that comes from the devil, it's devilish. But when you actually engage with the masses, you find that vast majority of them actually do believe in these indigenous religions. They do believe in the things their foreparents did, their ancestors did. So uh, really, it's difficult, but at the same time, you know, um, the work that has to be, it is work that is straightforward. We believe, it takes time, but it's straightforward to just engage dialogue, and you have to fight for their material interest as well. You can't go to the masses and say something about ideas in the sky. To quote Cabral again, you have some ideas in the sky. You have to meet them where their material interests lie. you know their wages, their lack of work, police brutality, whatever it is. And that is how you start to now challenge them to think about you know the kind of ideology that is necessary.
Yeah, you said something interesting though. You said people think Pan-Africanism is the devil. Like, how does that manifest? Like, is it this idea of So I've conversed with some continental Africans, and some of them, like, the idea of having Africans from one country like just being able to come into their country freely is horrible, or the idea of saying like let's all speak Swahili. Like, why would I want to speak another African language? So, like, what about Pan-Africanism? Have you found that people respond hostily to?
Yeah, I think mostly it comes down to culture and religion. You know, religion in particular, because not, if you're a Pan-Africanist and you try to defend indigenous religions, that's where the devilish thing normally comes in. But just in terms of, for example, um, yeah, speaking about I don't know what to say. Like, okay, generally, for example, now people dress in a Western style, right? They might not tell you that it is devilish, but there's an issue with them psychologically believing that you can dress in a different, in a different way. And yes, there's certainly the idea of, even in Nigeria, not to talk of the whole of Africa, the ethnic chauvinism that kind of divides you, and we saw that in South Africa. We see that, there are a lot of different beliefs, but I think that when you engage with people, you find that it's simply a result of propaganda. These beliefs are natural to people, you know, are natural indigenously to them. For example, tolerance for other Africans around you who you trade with. It's the clothes you wear, even in terms of the religions, you know. But it's just the general mass propaganda that they go through that makes them start to, have these beliefs. I think people are naturally Pan-Africanists. Yeah, it's really, but you have to dig deep into that and challenge them to, to get them to understand that what they believe similar to Pan-Africanism. They're just following something that is alien to them in terms of the propaganda that they get.
All right, so let's talk about Nigeria specifically. It's interesting, we've been told these stories on, on the news. Nigeria is like, I believe is it Africa's biggest economy at this current point, or second biggest? Like, I know it's, definitely one of the biggest, if not the biggest already. And all of a sudden, Nigeria is being marketed as, this is the prototype for what all Africa should be like. From what you all experience on the ground, does this actually have a benefit for the masses of people, African people in Nigeria?
Yeah, move that to Adebayo. We answer that.
Yeah, firstly, I have to say that we need to able to understand the social conditioning of the people to realize if truly Africa is one of the biggest economy. What is the essence of being the biggest economy and it's not reflecting the life of the poor people? And also that notion for me, from my own perspective, I feel it's a capitalist notion, because if you check the economy of Nigeria, how is it translating to the life of the people? You check the health sector, you check we don't have good roads, our educational system is just collapsing, things like that. So from me, in my own perspective, I feel like what is Nigeria actually doing? If truly we are giant of Africa, what are we actually doing to assist the neighboring countries? Are we doing more more of there's one thing people need to understand, is that nationalism itself has this imperialistic trait, because sometimes you know the way Nigerians think about other Africans, maybe let me say people like Kenya, they have this superior complex of we are the best and things like that. But if you check the social conditioning of those who are in Kenya and those who are in Nigeria, it's still on the same level. We are being deprived of good roads, good educations and things like that. So in reality, let's try to understand things. The Nigerian economy itself is only beneficiary to the ruling elite and the national bourgeoisie. So they are the ones who create all these false propaganda, in order to be able to to buy things in their own interest. Because those when you check out on our TVs, on our radio stations, you listen to pundits and intellectuals, they try much as possible to give out the information that is suitable to the holistic thinking, to be able to sort the capitalist system. So people need to understand that if Nigeria is actually the biggest economy in the world, let's try to understand how it has been beneficiary to the people. It is not. Africa now, Nigeria now is the capital state of the poverty in the world. So you're telling me like Africa is still, what's it called, the biggest economy if your people are being deprived of so many things. So those are the actual things we should be looking into what to for people to count people's consciousness. And also we should also realize that majority of all these informations we get, are from, Western institutions like IMF, World Bank and things like that. And IMF is working in the interest of what? Of the metropolis countries. So whenever we get information from those people, let's try as much as possible to understand it if truly it's reflecting in the life of our people, things like that. And also, in Nigeria presently, we're living on a deficit economy whereby, our social structure are all cracked down, the industries and things like that. And the only way we are running our economy is to borrow money. And when you borrow money from IMF or World Bank, there's a particular treaties or like an agreement, like maybe you guys have to increase the fuel price, or there must be one bargain, that will be able to benefit the IMF and the metropolis country. And this thing has its own effect. So for me, let's people try to open their mind to reality and leave this nationalist chauvinism one side and able to understand the social conditioning of our people. So that's my submission for you.
Thank you. Anything to add to that, anyone?
Yeah, yeah. I just want to add a little bit to that. If the way we interpret our economy is still based on colonial institutions, and we have the New York stock market, and we model our economy based on capitalistic framework, and we have a class structure that profiteers, gives itself stability and pats itself on the back because of the amount of surplus that it can steal from the people, and of course puts it in the media as if it's its own achievement. Then you start seeing things like the GDP popping up and all these nonsense metrics or indices to measure development. So this GDP doesn't show you the maldistribution of wealth. And then when you see the elite saying you have a GDP increase of this, what they are saying in revolutionary terms and in our own interpretation is that we've stolen this much percent from you guys, and this is how much we've disenfranchised the people, the masses on the ground. So if you have intellectuals and even middle class people regurgitating these things, they are doing themselves more harm than good because they bought into the economic, social, you know, political interpretations of what the economy is. So it's like the slave master saying, "Yes, my my slavery business or whatever increased by so and so percent," and you on the farm, you are jumping and being happy that there's a 10% increment in the amount of cotton you're able to pick from the field. So that's what it is. A lot of Africans need to understand that what we see as the economic metrics or indices is just the elites after they've triumphed in monopolizing the productive forces and waving it that, oh, this is how much we've stolen from you guys. So that's how I see it personally.
That's a very important point, I think, because the whole GDP thing, I never understood, like, how are you guys measuring this? Because you see the same countries that say, oh, they've had this growth in GDP, but many people are living on the streets and unable to provide for themselves. And it's almost like we have to have a different metric, because to me personally, like, I'd rather live in a country like Cuba, where at least I know my basic necessities would be met. If I had to compare that to a country that is said to have a great economy, like Nigeria or South Africa, where I'm not ensured that I'm going to actually have some type of standard of living that's reserved for a few. So I would just wonder, like, when you see like what's happening in South Africa right now, the people obviously, well, started off as a revolt because of Jacob Zuma, but I believe it became something much greater, a revolt against the disenfranchisement of African people there. Do you see those same elements in Nigeria brewing?
Or should I take that? Should I take that?
Anyway,
I, all right, yeah. So I think it's happened a bunch of times already in Nigeria. Where we had so-called lootings here and there. And I keep telling people, especially because we're in close proximity to lower middle class people, and they have this notion that these people are looting, they're bad and all. And I keep telling them that look, if you have a society that treats people like cigarette butt sticks that you can just use as surplus and toss away, and they don't feel that they are part of the developmental process of society, and they can see that you're stealing from them and all that. By the time you have a little upheaval, they go and reclaim in the brutest form the surplus that you've stolen from them. It's just as simple as that. We're not sugarcoating anything. Now, if you had a society where everyone can, take care of themselves, they're okay, they're engaged in productive activity, they have their own houses and all, you wouldn't even have people loitering on the streets or having this feeling of disenfranchisement such that they run into stores, to get what it is that they feel that they've been alienated from. It's like society is making it's disgusting creep forward, what we call development in capitalistic societies. It's a disgusting creep forward development. But even that disgusting creep is not drawing the masses of the people along. They're not being carried along. If we go around what we call the shopping malls, ShopRite, and all these malls in our society, you see around that area just what looks like heaven in that shopping mall. Around it is hell. Around it are even the security men that are carrying your bags. What you have in your grocery bag will feed their families. You know what you just came to buy for maybe ice cream just to eat and relax on a Sunday afternoon will feed their families for like a week, 2 weeks. And they're looking at you. The guys outside are looking at you. They're seeing this. So when a little bit of social disturbance comes, they're going there to claim things. They're going there to claim what has been stolen from them. They have that feeling of helplessness, but when the time comes and then things are upside down, even the policemen will get in there and take what it is that they feel is theirs or what society ought to have given to them. So what we have in South Africa is a replay of that. What you have in any society where people have been disenfranchised, you always get that. So I don't see any difference between what is happening in South Africa and what is happening in Nigeria and even other parts where they say even the United States where people get into these stores and take stuff. Like once you make people disenfranchised and they can see it, they might not have a theoretical explanation for it, but they know that they're alienated from society. They know that they're being trampled upon. And when it's time, you get the action of surplus claiming in the brutest form. That's just it.
yeah, and this problem's only getting worse. I think that's what people don't understand. To me, we don't have a choice. When you look at how not just what exists, because what exists is horrible, obviously, but the fact that the rich are only getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and the poor are growing in numbers. With those dynamics, this is not sustainable anywhere in Africa, right?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. Anywhere in the world, you can't have a bunch of people cornered in a place enjoying the spoils of society while the rest, look, even the hyenas will try to grab something from the lion now. Like, so, or even the wild dogs in the jungle, they try to grab stuff, not to talk of human beings that, capitalism has reduced us into this barbaric nature. So people will grab. It's just it. If you have a society that's egalitarian, that takes care of the basic needs of people, you won't have what you're having. But if you have a society that feels that it is the power of the state, it is armed men that need to secure and guard private property, when you have a little bit of social upheaval, then and when that system cannot hold or it's apparent that it can't serve that function of keeping them away from what they've been enclosed from, then they rush in and take what it is that is theirs.
Can we talk a little bit about what is going on exactly right now with President Buhari? I've heard a lot of people obviously are critical of him. I'm very critical of him. I'm sure you guys are very critical of him. But it seemed like at one moment, you know, he was all over the news, and now like I don't hear, at least, you know, from America, I'm sure you guys hear the news about him, but I haven't heard anything new. Does it still look like people are going to get him out of power? And just what are your thoughts on him generally?
If I may come in, yeah, where is ever present, and as you know, with the recent discussion, we have a serious, you know, crisis in terms of what they say security. You know, kidnappings everywhere. Um, uh, um, so-called, you know, bandits roaming about, and that just simply, you know, as was being explained, the scenario in which there's so much wealth on one side and the lack of wealth on the other, and that is a natural consequence. And Nigeria is going through serious crisis. This is, you know, Buhari is not the he's just a symbol of the elites that have been ruining Nigeria, you know. But these elites can only throw out the worst of the worst, given the way, you know, they have operated and the fact that, you know, they certainly don't have any smart people among them, you know, in terms of people who care, you know. It's about how they can manipulate elections, you know. There's no voting, you know, there's nothing fair about it, but how they can manipulate it, you know. And Buhari is just someone who they thought they could bring in to pacify the northern poor masses, where there's a lot of poverty, because he spoke the kind of language that might appeal to a large segment of the northern masses, a lot of chauvinism, a lot of religiosity, you know, and he tried to sound as socialist as possible, you know. And so the ruling elites were very fine to have him there, but turns out that he's the worst of the worst they can bring up. Um, so the reality is, anyway, just on the side note, not that it matters so much, is that Buhari is not actually medically well. He's not really there. He's not really ruling. There is a clique or a cabal, whatever, and that is the way it is. The ruling elites will always take care of themselves. With the among the Buhari faction, they are ruling. He's just there symbolically, really, you know, and there are certain instincts he has that the people around him follow, which is instincts of being very repressive, you know, being very fascistic. And yeah, people are saying they've had enough, but unfortunately, the situation is more like you now have a lot of separatist agitation, you know, in terms of like the Igbos and the Yorubas, and we want to form our own nation. Um, we had the NSAS movement, which was quite strong, you know, and quite positive in many respects. But at the end of the day, it was heavily repressed. We saw people being shot at and so on. And since then, they've made it next to impossible for people to come out on the streets to protest, you know. So it's really looking like, you know, obviously when you make peaceful change impossible, you start to have a lot of more violent acts, and it starts to go into different directions that are not very positive. And that's what we have right now. But those of us who are on the ground are still trying our best, you know, to organize and to bring out some mass. But the thing is, at the same time, we must understand that this isn't just about Buhari. There's some people who focus so much on Buhari must go, and they get into alignment with certain of the ruling elites, and we start talking about the next elections, and the next elections is just going to bring in another person who is simply going to represent, you know, the ruling elite and the imperialist powers, and that's what it will continue to be, um, until people actually organize to throw out, you know, the entirety of the elites. So that's kind of the situation on ground now. Um,
It's amazing because everything you're saying is like the same thing. Like I hear African people, United States, and then obviously, like I feel like everywhere we are, there's like this focus on electoral politics. You know, this idea that these individual people are the problem, but not a lot of focus on the system that's creating the problem. Which I think leads to my other question: how does neo-colonialism play the role of what's happening in Nigeria? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Neocolonialism is at the root of it. That's why, as we were saying earlier, that if you don't understand the roots, you will still end up chasing shadows. Um, and why is it? Very simply put, when we were under colonialism, we were just raw material exporters, extractive. And any infrastructure that was built by the British was about taking the goods out of the country. So we can say they built some infrastructure, um, to do that, and they created a class of Nigerians who are the so-called middlemen who take a cut and to get the goods out over, and those middlemen have become who are the ruling elite of Nigeria today. We are being ruled by middlemen whose only interest is cut, you know, uh, and so they are naturally corrupt. People don't understand corruption. They think the corruption is the problem of Nigeria. They think bad leaders are the problem of Nigeria, but there's a failure to understand that this corruption has a reason for it. You when you operate as a middleman economy, some call it a rentier state. It's not about producing. You don't produce any goods for your people. You don't produce clothes, you don't produce shoes, you don't produce cars, you don't produce houses, you don't build bridges. There's nothing. So are you going to educate the people to do any of those things? Of course not. The people don't need to be educated. The people simply need to go into the ground and dig and bring out whatever it is that they're going to bring out. And, and then the person that really is going to be valued in that exchange is the middleman, the person that identifies who to sell it to, puts it on a ship and gets it out. So, there's not going to be any education. You don't care about these people. There's not going to be any health care, because why would you have a healthcare for a vibrant workplace? We have to say this. Yes, even the worst capitalist societies have some elements in which they have to take care of their workers. They do, because if you don't take care of your workers, yes, I know it. They are getting. They've got so used to neoliberalism that they are getting worse, and it's actually making their societies worse. It makes no sense, no logical sense, because they've allowed the whole idea about making profits off finance dominate, like in states like the US. So it's no longer a good model. But in the past, you have, for example, a president like Harry Truman asking, you're so against socialism, you forgot how socialism built America. You know, so um, so it's very straightforward. We are essentially extractive, and we continue to be, and we serve the new colonialist powers, and they tell us that, if we want to improve our situation, we should build our comparative advantage. What is your comparative advantage? Dig the ground or whatever and bring whatever is out in it and send it to us. That is all. Your comparative advantage can never be produce things for yourselves. So so education in that scenario is unnecessary. um High standards of living are unnecessary. Healthcare is unnecessary, and so on. And of course, these people who dig are supposed to have no value. You pay people on the basis of value you consider that they have. So, you know, and of course, you have a military machine, a repressive machine that keeps people in their place, that is supported by the colonialists. So, the colonialists have they can come in whenever they want. You know, their soldiers come in anytime they want to enforce whatever they want to do, and so they are part of the repressive machinery, despite any noises they may make about democracy. You know, they are part of it. They're backing it up. In fact, a lot of our military generals were trained by them. Um, so there's a lot to say about how neo-colonialism is, is is causing our crisis right now, and that's why we cannot escape if we say we want to work within that paradigm. We really can't. It makes no sense. You know, for example, oil is what Nigeria exports. You know, and in a few years, the world is going to be less reliant on oil. Um, and so we have a scenario in which if you don't learn how to make things for yourselves, produce things of value, and also, there's also this cultural imperative, like I said, that has made people believe so much that if I work hard, if I do business, if I'm smart, not work hard, because nobody believes in working hard. Let's even forget that one, because I think in the US there's this belief that if you work hard, you can become rich or something. But here, nobody believes that. If you're smart, you can you can become a billionaire. A few days ago, we watched a few billionaires throwing money all over the place. You know, people actually believe that, oh yeah, we can, and capitalism is good. It's just some things, bad leaders, whatever, but this system is fine. And that cultural imperialism is the most dangerous. It actually believes that makes people value only wealth. You know, um, only, the idea of having a communalist attitude towards one another is eroded. You know, the doing work with your hands, the idea of doing work with your hands and being proud of it is eroded. All of these things. It's a long way. I mean, we can talk so much about the damage of neo-colonialism. It's quite severe. But earlier you were talking about you love to live in Cuba. Recently, I saw an article about how Cuban prisons operate versus how Americans prison operate. Or how the Cuban people live. In terms of you can go out, whole families go out for a walk, value of community, value with nature. But we think the better life is to sit down, be watching from television, get some expensive phones, and that's what makes life worth it. You know, that's not it. Certainly. So here we are in. I think we're in a hell, actually, a hell of the making of the new colonialists, and it's a perfect hell. Everything bad about capitalism is right here with us.
That's deep. And so much came to my mind. One, the propaganda is just so heavy. I wonder, like, if YouTube, does that cause detrimental, like, aspirations that you guys like experience? So for example, you'll hear I'm not gonna call any channels out, but there are some channels like their whole basis is, come to Africa, you can start with small, you can become rich. Look at this person, they started off in a village and now they're a multi-million-dollar owner. Or look at this person from the diaspora, they left their business and this country and now they're here and they're doing this. Does that cause some of the issues, like you were saying, cultural imperialism? Like, do people really buy into this idea that everyone can benefit the same?
Um, uh, uh, should I take that or what? All right, all right. Let me just say a little bit on that. Like I feel it's the replication of the capitalist ideology and you mentioned cultural imperialism. Because most of the people that come with their capital come to dispossess indigenous people of their lands, to enclose and live on that as private property. What essentially you're doing again is replicating that exploitative, system, and then coming to lord over the people because you've been able to extract a little bit more capital from the belly of the beast, and then you're coming to replicate the same nonsense here to lord over people, disenfranchise them, get them off the land, make them homeless, make them farmless, make them, what used to be their survival base in terms of maybe the small plot of land that they had, you just cordon it off. You have as your estates with swimming pool and all that. So that even goes to this same Acorn thing, coming to do Acorn City, I can bet 100% that the poor people of Senegal won't have access to that place. And he's of course partnering with the neo-colonial guys in Senegal and all that. So he too has also bought into this mentality, to replicate that dispossession of the people, enclosure of the commons, and then dispossessing people of their lands. So people need to inoculate themselves with the knowledge that we can't come as diasporans or people that have a little bit more capital to replay exploitation, replay oppression on the people. If anything, you're supposed to be building solidarity, working, networking with the people on ground to see how you can relieve them of the nasty conditions that they are living in. So I feel that's a very, very crucial thing that needs to be done on part of the diaspora. Of course, talking to the people on ground and not going. Once you understand that the countries that you're going to link or liaise with is essentially neo-colonialist, then you know not to go through the officials. You know to talk directly to the people on the ground, such that when you're bringing your money, you're bringing to genuinely help and not contribute to the problem. So yeah.
Yo, in addition to that, I just want to add one or two things. Can I proceed? Yeah, you said something about neo-colonialism, how it affects the people mentality and the way of thinking, and also we also need to iron out is that this American capitalism, what has really done to people's psychic in trying to preach out this prosperity, try to get rich, and also this is a part of the process. Black American, let me say Black Africans, African American in America, are trying also to bring capitalism back into Africa, because you see majority of them, they are coming to Africa. Are they coming genuinely to lift up the social conditioning of the people, or they see African as an opportunity for them, to expand the capitalist idea they've learned in America? Because you see all you just see on TVs, even some set of Americans, you see them, they are just like the intermediary, whereby now they take from funds, they take funds from people, from Americans, of Americans. They come here to invest, but they don't realize that maybe the land they are buying is a communal land. They strip it away. They try to live this class life. And also, when you see majority of them coming back to Africa, they bring back this ideology of trying to live like a royal. All those kind of things they talk about. Uh, um, 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 Mensa Musa, like they want to get rich like Mensa Musa, acquire a lot of boats, things like that. Those are the things capitalism has able to do to even the Black Americans over there too. So what are we actually trying to do? Is the unity of Africans in America, or and indigenous people in Africa? Is it for the purpose of bringing out surplus value, or it's for the purpose of developing the social material life of our people? Because when you see diasporans coming to Africa for maybe for holiday, you see them, they want to attach themselves with these feudalist lords, or try to relate more with the government. They are not actually coming down to have like a connection like like a cultural connection between the people here. They're not having a dialogue with them. They're not even knowing what these people are going through. They just come here with a lot of illusions, and they just keep even being another problem now in Ghana. Now there are problem of class in Ghana. Americans in Ghana are having issues with the Ghanaians. They feels like the Ghanaian, as times goes by, these people will be able to take their lands, run the economy, and the poor man in Ghana can't even afford to buy land anymore, because land is very expensive now in Ghana. So we also need to question our people who are over there. What are they actually doing to develop Africa? Are they seeing Africa as a means, or as a way, to also be into the capitalist system, to exploit their own brothers over here? So that's my view. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. You speaking truth. I love it. And it's something I see too, like all the time. And actually, WCC, we created a whole platform about this because it's true. Like some of us, we just look at Africa as a business opportunity or an opportunity to escape racism in America and live our best life. Not understanding that if you just go with your money that you made from whatever business or job you had here, number one, that money that you have is just as a result of what America is doing everywhere else to create that wealth, number one. So you're taking that imperialist money and you're not going to take it back to try to challenge the system that's happening, of things that are happening in countries in Africa, but you're going to take it back to continue the system. And we did a video about this. It should be a warning to people. This is dangerous, because you can't live this privileged lifestyle, even among, your brothers and sisters. You can't think that you're going to live this lifestyle and you're going to go untouched, because it's like Marcus Garvey, he said, a hungry man is no respecter of persons. And you can't live that among people who are so impoverished by this same system and think that you're just going to have a happy existence. That's one thing we warn people about. So do you guys have any follow up on that, or should I go to the next question?
Just to add to the propaganda of the Ghanaian government, the year of the return, where a lot of there was a real big push by the Ghanaian government on that, So people in the diaspora, must be conscious of that. They must have their heads on their shoulders to know exactly what it is that they're putting their money into, and to understand that they're not that they shouldn't be here to sabotage, their fellow Africans and all that. So that's just
Yeah, and it's really about, I know like many of our brothers and sisters in America, like we have like good intentions, but unfortunately, because we haven't been re-educated about what the colonial system is, we think that a lot of us think we're doing something good by just, I'm going to start a business in Africa, so I'm investing in Africa. But we have to challenge our brothers and sisters and say, when you say investing in Africa, you're just going to have a business and you're going to employ people and you think that's enough? Well, consider the greater issue. There's not a single business that's going to reverse the colonial system. We have to challenge the colonial system. We have to be political about what we're doing, not just aspiring to, this safe, prosperous, business, and that's it, So here's I think the important question that everyone always wants to know. What is, for your organization standpoint, what needs to happen, not just in Nigeria, but with Africans, whether they're on the continent, in the diaspora? And then also, could you speak about how the diaspora plays the role in African liberation from your point of view?
OAG, your question.
Yeah, all right. Yeah. So what I feel needs to happen first is the preliminary building block, is building revolutionary consciousness first. Because we talked about the people in the diaspora, because they don't or didn't have this revolutionary consciousness, they are coming to be part of the problem on the ground. So when we build revolutionary consciousness, we do our work, make use of social media tools and all that. Then it leads to the second stage of us identifying the main contradictions on the ground. Like, what are the main problems? What are the things that are, supporting these problems out? Which is the imperialist system, the capitalist system. Once we're educated, we start to pinpoint and say, okay, it's this system. This is this is that. When I put my money here, this is what it does. When I don't put it here, this is what it does. When I speak out this way, this is what it does. When I help my people on the ground, when I link up with this organization, this is what it does. This is what it doesn't do. So when we're educated, this is the second step. It helps us to identify the main problems. And then, of course, we are now able to sieve out and isolate the facilitators of exploitation on ground, which is the ruling bourgeois element and the ruling class in Africa. Okay, so these are the guys. Since independence, we've had a bunch of nationalist elites that have been, partners with imperialism that have just opened the country up for takes to anybody that has capital, international monopoly finance, the World Bank, every of these Western institutions. So we are able to identify and pinpoint out, okay, this is the African ruling class, the bourgeoisie here are the problem. And then we can now fashion out the appropriate revolutionary action, be it mass movements where we all come out, be it armed struggle, be anything, because at that point in time, you're one with the people. You understand the necessities, like Malcolm said, educate the people and a program will come out. So if we have a repressive government that is making peaceful protests or peaceful resolution happen, we know there are other routes to take. History has shown us that there are other routes to take. The people, the ruling elites are few, and we are millions. You know, we always what we just need this organization, like Kwame Ture said. You know, if it's mass movements, we all get on the streets, shut the city down or shut the country down, change constitution and all that. We do it. They're doing it in Peru, doing it in Ecuador, doing it in parts of Latin America. We'll do that. And then, of course, after we get the base and hold power, then the work continues to internationally solidarity now. So we have to spread that across Africa because that's when Nigeria becomes the giant it's supposed to be because of our population. Because a revolutionary Nigeria, by default, like it's come out like vending machine. The countries on the west coast of Africa will be revolutionary instantly because we are so big. Our influence will be so strong, and so we just keep popping revolutionary governments in Ghana, in Benin Republic, in Senegal, you know, up onto Gambia, you know, even Cape Verde and all that. You know, so that's what the internationalist scope has to build up, and then we start having a continent that strand by strand becomes free until we can talk of the territorial mass of Africa being an independent and a united, you know, the ideas of uniting now becomes easier to imagine. It becomes easy for us to open the borders. It becomes easy for us to trade and all that, you know. And then and only then will Africa be viewed as, you know, a place to be, a region to be proud of. You know, even for people in diaspora, you can now come in and make positive contributions and all that, you know, when you met a system that is positive and non-exploitative on the ground, you know. So those are the step-by-step things that I feel needs to happen for Nigeria and Africa to be a place to be.
Anyone have anything to add?
Yeah, in addition to that, I just want to have bring forward, you know, the connection between the Africans in America and the indigenous African background. You know, we need to able to understand that, you know, our struggle are the same, because if you check in America, you know, with the police brutality over there, likewise the police brutality over there, you know, people are not having, you know, the social structure, you know, for a better life. You can see how, you know, black people, you know, died during the COVID-19, and that is a way of trying to make racism more systemic. So people actually need to understand that our struggle is connected, is interwoven, and I will try to quote what's it called, Amika Cabral said, you know. One thing people need to understand is that, you know, there's unity, there's unity in purpose. The way there is unity, we're able to iron out, you know, things that are happening over there and things that are happening over here. Then we all know that we are going against imperialism, we are going against capitalism, and a lot of people don't really understand this thing as the biggest threat, you know, to our lives, because, you know, American propaganda everywhere. You know, they spread a lot of, I don't want to use the word bullshit, but they sent so much propaganda and people believe in all these things, and it's still part of also our work. What are the Pan Africans going to do? You know, they should give more resources to those that are really willing to do this work, because we have, you know, there are ideas, you know, progressive, the next generally in Africa. How are we going to expand it? How are we going to have like a real revolutionary party in our system? Not that they will just come there with their money, you know, and then one thing they have, like right now in Nigeria now, you know, the election is 2023, and we see those reactionary um Nigerians in diaspora that are being influenced by the so-called feudal democracy they practice in America. You know, they just want to just come in their money, you know, invest into the electoral system, so they can also, you know, being in high positions and continue the whole exploitation. So we should have like an alignment between us, you know, alliance between us. You know, we want to be in the song of America. We can put our own impact, what we can actually do. You know, so likewise to the Americans in diaspora, the Africans in diaspora, you know, should also see how they could be able to connect with their brothers here in Nigeria and Africa generally. Thank you very much. And also, I also need to understand on the question of Nigeria, you know, having a revolutionary in Nigeria. You know, having a revolutionary in Nigeria is not the end, because we also need to understand that even in China, having a revolutionary country like China, you know, in Asia, we realize how the U.S. imperialism is trying to use, you know, Japan, Indian, you know, country like that. So we should seek beyond how we can be able to revolutionize African in general, because Nigeria alone cannot stand alone. because you can see how sanctions is being used for Cuba, and it's it's causing a lot of problem in Cuba right now. So people need we as African people need to take like where we actually going to is to free our continent and free our people over there. And also, people that also need to understand this idea that our struggle is beyond color. It's not about color. It's about all the oppressed people in the world. The global South in general. We want to liberate people in Mexico. We want to liberate people maybe in Venezuela or what country. So we have to have a unity of purpose. So that's my submission for now. Thank you very much.
And that's a powerful point too. It's like my mentor Obi Egbuna, he always mentions a quote, I believe it's by Kwame Nkrumah, that winning a revolution versus maintaining a revolution. Maintaining the revolution is very difficult, and so we see what's happening right now with Cuba. See how the media with China constantly. There's a Venezuela. There's Zimbabwe. There's constantly like this effort to undermine people whenever they become sovereign. So, like you said, the fight isn't just winning for your individual country, but it's forming a powerful bloc that can withstand imperialist oppression. So, I agree. Anything else that you would all like to mention closing out?
I'd just like to say that we are very open to working with organizations all around, that are really interested in spreading consciousness, coming to the table to understand the nature of our people, how we can target them at their level, and how we can ensure that the message that we're passing across gets assimilated in the proper fashion, so that step by step we start building a movement or a cadre of people home and abroad that are, aware of the intricacies of our problems and how imperialism moves and how capitalism is and the things that are supposed to do and they're not supposed to do, and when they see the news how they're supposed to appraise it and not gobble everything up. Even when we hear something about the US and when you hear something about the African continent, where the stance that you're supposed to take, how to verify and clarify things, that. So it's really essential that everybody comes with this unity of purpose so that we understand the level that we're at and then build forward. So I think that's very, very essential. So I think if any other additions want to come in, it'll be welcome.
Yeah, I just would add myself that we are at a critical period in African history. Um, we we see things like we have seen in South Africa, we have seen in Nigeria, and we are seeing in the home of imperialism as well, that the system is not working, and people are only going to get poorer and poorer, whereas a few people are going to get richer and richer. You know, we were speaking earlier about being extractive society economies in Africa, and there was someone I was listening to yesterday. I think the Zambian socialist presidential candidate, said something that struck. In the era of technology, you need less hands, and you pay people less to mine. For example, in Zambia, they mine copper. You know, so it's not surprising at all that you are going to have, you know, an increased mass of destitute people. We have the era of robotization anyway, which is going to be a challenge for them, of course, in the West, because um, so, but it's not to be pessimistic. The thing is that these conditions are there, and these conditions need the kind of consciousness that can direct it. And we take inspiration from previous struggles of Kwame Nkrumah, of Amilcar Cabral, of Sankara. People will say they failed, but we disagree. We don't think they failed, and particularly refer to the Black Panther Party as people who were ideologically driven, who understood they had to fulfill the material interests of their base, of the people they were struggling with. And um, people will say the Black Panther failed, but it was because the Black Panthers were so strong that there was a very heavy repression against them. That shows you that there's inspiration there that you can take from those, from those in the past. And like there's a scientist that said that we stand on the shoulder of giants. We have a real potential now. The conditions are very ripe for revolutionary change across Africa. Very, very ripe. But they won't. The fruit is not going to fall off the tree by itself, you know. And so, and it is very key again to it cannot be overemphasized the role of the diaspora all over. Africans have moved all over the world, not just in terms of African Americans, but of recent in search for a better life. And they have a real potential now to unite their forces and to direct, in a very, strategic manner, a change. But we have to really move away from all these diversions, like ethnic chauvinism, like electoralism, working within the system, and thinking that capitalism has something to offer. It's very, very, very obvious to our eyes that capitalism has failed. It's blowing up. COVID-19 just exposed it for what it is. And so these are really critical times, but we are optimistic. Again, just to repeat, because I really love the way Cabral says things and the fact that you plant a seed and it goes stages by stages. You don't lose hope because you think that flower is not growing so fast. It needs its water, it needs its sun, and it needs its time. So that's what I would say.
I appreciate that. I appreciate this whole interview. It's been very insightful. And like you said, the conditions are right. I keep telling people the next revolution, or not next revolution, there's always revolutions, but the next major front has to be Africa when you look at the conditions. And like you said, it's just a matter of developing the organizational structure so that our people are ready. So everyone, Movement for African Emancipation. This is an organization in Nigeria, but it's a Pan-African organization. So you should definitely look them up. They're linked to their Twitter, to their YouTube, and also you guys have a Facebook. Do you have a website I can put in the description also? And their website will all be
in
in
the
the
website. Yes.
Yes, okay.
MovementForAfricanEmancipation.org. Check us out.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So moving for AfricanEmancipation.org, and everything will be in the description. You should support these people. You should try to connect with them, and let's build that global revolution, like we said. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and thank you, my guests, for coming.
Thank you very much for hosting us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.